Oh,
Hello, and welcome to today's stream. Today we're going to talk about a lot of different things, mostly in the crypto space at the moment, but let me just start by saying this stream is going to be 100% community driven. Any indicator requests, strategy requests, anything like that, go ahead and just drop them in the comments and we'll get to those if we have time during the stream. Also, while we're getting this stream off the ground, we are giving away our entire suite of TradingView strategies, which is mostly what I'm presenting here on the charts, is just showing you how you can use our automated risk management tools to make more mathematically and data-driven decisions. So if you're interested in anything that you see on this stream, the description below has all of the links to our TradingView strategies. All you have to do is 1, give this video a like, 2, subscribe to our channel, and 3, go to our Discord support with your TradingView username, and just drop your TradingView username in our Discord support, and I'll make sure that you get access to all of our TradingView strategies. Also, there's a lot more TradingView strategies that I'm in the works of publishing at the moment, so in the next streams, I'll be dropping those in the description as well. And you can actually have access to an even wider array of risk management tools. Very, very cool. This stream is 100% sponsored by us. So if you're interested in our AI-driven trading platform, you can go to killerwhaleventures.com. We have a 50% off going for the rest of the year. So you can use the code CYBERMONDAY50 and get 50% off of any of our memberships at killerwhaleventures.com. Okay, that's enough about the sponsorships. Yep, if you want our TradingView strategies, you know where to find them. And let's just go ahead and dive right in. So Sundays are the beginning. The reason I decided to do these streams at 6 p.m. is because Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern time is when the futures markets open. And you can see down here on the left-hand side of my screen, there's a bunch of alerts going off. That's because we have different future signals that we're testing out and sending to different accounts and things like that. So if you're interested in any of that, I do have our futures trading stuff pulled up on my other screen here. And as soon as one of those trades comes in, I did edit some of the algos over the weekend. So, I'm gonna have to as we get going here, I'll have to disable all of our sounds that play constantly, because those kind of get annoying if you're not used to hearing them all the time like I am. Okay, anyway, so yeah, I'm watching my other screen here, and as soon as a live trade goes through, I have several different futures accounts that were freshly started last week, and I have a new 50K account on Tradify, which we have a link below if you're interested in that, and a discount code for Tradify as well. So got a few fresh futures accounts. Sunday for me is all about the futures stuff and just kind of reviewing where we're at in the crypto space going into the next week. And then, maybe next week we'll also have my partner on and we can look at things through a little bit more of an options lens as well, because he's quite the options trader. I'm much more of a spot and long-term investor and swing trader. So we'll have a few different opinions as we get into this thing. But yeah, let's go ahead and just look at a few things here. So let's go ahead and just talk about where Bitcoin is at the moment. So Bitcoin, our long-term 100% successful algorithm. Again, when do you see an algorithm 100% successful? You see that on this channel, and I'll explain exactly why we're able to do that as we go along here. But our 100% successful Bitcoin algorithm did send a buy signal today. So this one, we're looking at Binance's data. So on Binance's data, we did see a buy signal on Bitcoin today. So you will see that fairly often, depending on if, much more often in a downward stretch will we see some of these buy signals come through. And you can see on these like upward swings, you're not getting a whole lot of buy signals. It's mostly in these relative valleys that you'll see our buy signals. Well, what are we in right now? We are in a relative valley, and Bitcoin is currently breaking down out of that bear pole bear flag pattern we were talking about last week. But let me just say a few things about Bitcoin before we move over to the technical stuff. So we are still firmly within this bullish control zone, although we do have our line in the sand here of our bullish control zone about 80,000, 80,250. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that. Let's go ahead and switch over to the technicals before I talk about some of the news. So let me just pop open the technicals here. This is Bitcoin US dollar on Kraken's data. I think Kraken has some of the best data for at least analyzing the technical side of things. So that's why I usually have the technical stuff pulled up on Kraken's data. Also, that's where I like to accumulate Bitcoin, is on Kraken. And then, you know, we can kind of just talk about it from there. So Bitcoin is breaking down today out of a technical pattern. That technical pattern is a bearish pattern. The bearish pattern that we're looking at is an ascending triangle, which we could construe as a bear pole bear flag. So if I just go over here and we kind of just do one of these, this is kind of what we're looking at the moment. A bear flag has formed, and we have unfortunately started to break out of the downside here. I'm not much of a short trader, but I do like to measure the targets just to get an idea of where we may be going, and also areas of opportunity within bearish type of technical analysis patterns. So I had been talking about all last week how we were forming this bear pole bear flag, and we could be breaking down. So over the last couple of days, I went and measured the targets where we could possibly be going down to if we saw these if we see this pattern start to really play out. Where could we possibly be going for Bitcoin? And I know a lot of you probably don't want to hear this, but our lowest target at the moment is about 66,000. From where we are currently, that would be a pretty heavy downside drop. From where we are today, we could be seeing another 25% downside. So do I think that's going to happen? I really don't think that's going to happen, but it would line up with the breakout zone that we had experienced in October of 2024. So in October 2024, we broke out of this descending broadening formation. Descending broadening formations are very, very powerful, not only in the crypto space, but in the technical analysis space. They're one of my favorite patterns to play. Again, I'm more of a spot and swing trader. So for me, I'm going to be consistently accumulating and using these patterns to measure out target areas of, potential ideas of where maybe going back to cash might be a good idea, or just, what to look out for, right? So now we also have to be conscious of bearish patterns, because it's not all blue skies in the investing space or the crypto space or even the Bitcoin space. Even though Bitcoin has done extremely, extremely well, the best performing asset on earth the last since 2009 until where we are today, so about the last 15 years. But we do still have to be vigilant of where we can go from here. So let's just go ahead and zoom in here, and we'll just take a look at how we measure these patterns. So how we measure pattern number one, it's going to be the distance from the breakout to the top of the structure. So that's exactly what we've done here for pattern number one. It's the distance from the top of the structure to the breakout zone. Target number two is going to be the last swing low level. So that's going to be right here at about 83,750. And then target number three is going to be the lowest swing. So that was back on November 21st. And that's the lowest point we've seen in this bearish run. That's going to be our third target. And where is our fourth target? Our fourth target is going to be measured from the length of the flagpole. So if it was a bull flag, we could be measuring the length of the flagpole to the upside. Since this is a bear flag, we're measuring the length of the flagpole to the downside. Now, the difference between a bull flag and a bear flag in this instance is a bull flag, if we were breaking out to the upside, we'd have a lot more conviction of actually going the length of the pole. So for me, I'm more interested in these first three targets. This fourth target is just kind of like if the sky does continue to fall, where could we possibly be going to? And for me, it's going to be right about this level where we had this previous breakout, or where we're seeing these previous levels of resistance, which should now be acting as support. So if you aren't able to stomach another 25% drop on Bitcoin, this might not be the market for you. It is extremely volatile. And going into things that we had talked about last week, Kathy Wood, top analyst, CEO of ARK Invest, she thinks that the bottom's in at this most recent swing low. We have no real reason to doubt that analysis. Basically, what we would be looking at for a bullish continuation is achieving all three of these targets, or maybe two targets, maybe down to here, and then finding a level of support, right? So that level of support, let me just go ahead and turn our long-term algorithm on, and I'll show you mathematically why we mark that area as our lowest level of support. So here you can see our green cloud is our bullish control zone. So if we do go back down to test that $80,000 level, $81,000 level, that's going to be our line in the sand for bullish momentum, and we are going to want to see some pretty heavily a pretty heavy bounce right here. So we were going to want to see a very high level of support. And if we don't see that, yeah, it's a pretty quick trip down to that $65,000 region. And, nobody wants that. So hopefully some of the bulls will step back in around this area and we'll be able to push to the upside. Yep, that's our Bitcoin analysis for the time being. Let's go ahead and move on to Ethereum. I'm going to try and keep these shows about an hour. The first few shows went about 2 hours. That's just because I can talk a lot. But really, I just need to hear from the audience if there's any particular assets that we want to analyze, or if you want me to throw one of our algorithms on an asset, things like that. And yeah, we'll just take this as it comes. And before we move fully into Ethereum, actually, let me back up a little bit. Let me back up here. So let's look at the technicals on Bitcoin and let's read this article here together. So 5 reasons Q1 2026 could spark the biggest crypto bull run yet. Experts are increasingly signaling a potential crypto bull run in the first quarter of 2026, driven by a convergence of macroeconomic factors. Analysts suggest Bitcoin could surge between 300,000 and 600,000 if these catalysts materialize. 5 macro trends fueling a potential rally in Q1 2026. A combination of 5 key trends is creating what analysts describe as a perfect storm for digital assets. Fed balance sheet pause removes headwind. The Federal Reserve's quantitative tightening, which drained liquidity throughout 2025, ended recently. Simply halting the liquidity drain is historically bullish for risk assets. Data from previous cycles suggests Bitcoin can rally up to 40% when central banks stopped contracting their balance sheets. Analyst Benjamin Cohen indicated that early 2026 could be the time when markets begin to feel the impact of the Fed ending its QT, or quantitative tightening. Rate cuts could return. The Federal Reserve recently cut interest rates, with its commentary and Goldman Sachs forecasts indicating interest rate cuts could resume in 2026, potentially bringing rates down to 3 to 3.25%. Lower rates typically increase liquidity and boost appetite for speculative assets such as cryptocurrencies. Improved short-end liquidity. Increased treasury bill purchases or other support at the short end of the yield curve could ease funding pressures and reduce short-term rates. The Fed says it will start technical buying of treasury bills to manage market liquidity. So, what does that all mean? It basically just means that, we might have a bit more appetite for risk on assets. And what is the most risk on asset? Cryptocurrency. And Bitcoin, although it has gained notoriety and popularity, is still a very, very new asset and a very, very new store of value, only being around for about 15 years, where things like gold have been around for thousands and thousands of years. Even till just recently, gold was considered a risk asset. Now there's a lot of analysts really turning their mindset around about even gold as more of a safe haven than a risk asset. So, a lot of people, instead of going back to cash, they're going to gold instead of, trying to hold in assets like cash, right? So that has been happening recently. There's been a lot of news about it. Even in the article we read last week where Kathy Wood said the bottom is in for the crypto space, we may or may not see that, but even she was saying that gold is now a risk off asset, and that's where investors tend to go when they're taking their assets, either back to cash or to risk off, right? So let's talk about Ethereum. Ethereum, we had been speculating and we've been watching this move on the stream, and we had achieved target number 1 last week after we called this descending channel breakout that we've been seeing. So this descending channel breakout, we already took 50% of our trade off of the table at target number 1. So really what we're looking at is to push up to target number 2 and target number 3. If Bitcoin keeps going down, we may not see that. If Bitcoin starts to go down to those target 2, target 3, and all the way down to target 4 at 66,000, this move will probably be invalidated. So basically what we're doing here is we've already taken 50% of our trade off the table. So even if we come back down to our stop loss here, we will come out with a small gain. But really what we want to see is forming a higher low where we are right now. What's really interesting, I've got to say, is you can tell there's a bottoming of the market coming in because Bitcoin has continued to go to the downside, where as you can see, Ethereum here isn't really dropping like Bitcoin is. And we're going to see that in a couple other assets that we go through here. XRP, Solana, they're not really dropping with the same level of aggressiveness as Bitcoin. We could see that all change when everybody's back in the office on Monday. But as of right now on Sunday, Bitcoin's dropping at a much quicker rate than some of the other currencies, top 10 currencies that we look at here. So Ethereum, target number 2, 3,600. Target number 3, 3,900. What we want to see here is a higher low. So basically where we're at right now, we want to see a turnaround and then push up to target 2. Once we hit target 2, we're going to move our stop loss to break even. And yeah, that's pretty much the analysis on Ethereum here. I would like to see us hit target 2 and target 3 because that could be the catalyst to really validate this descending broadening structure that we have on Ethereum here. Descending broadening structure is very, very wide and very, very large. So at some point, if we do see this structure be validated and we do come back up to these levels and break out, that could be a catalyst for prices all the way up to like $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 per Ethereum. But we're just going to take it one move at a time. First, we have to watch this descending channel play out, see how that plays out. Hopefully it can bring us back up to that 4,000 level, that previous all-time high level, and then our new all-time high level. So we got quite a ways to go, but as we've seen in Ethereum this year, it does have these roller coaster moves. So beginning of 2025, where we dropped all the way back down to 1,400 on Ethereum from 4,000. So that was a 65% loss. And then we did an absolute rocket ship back up to all-time high. Anything is possible in this space. We just play it one move at a time, right? So what we're looking for right now is just to finish this move out, and we can talk about further developments once they develop. But at the moment, just trying to hold on tight and play this move the best we can. Let's look at the overall performance of our Ethereum algorithm. Been 53% profitable just because, according to the algorithm here, it sold back over here. That is not what I did, right? I looked at this and I said, well, that's nice, but I didn't actually act upon this selling activity. So according to the algorithm, it looks like it sold this long stretch of accumulation, but that is not actually what happened. Simply what I did is I just stopped buying at that point, right? So when we saw this sell signal back in March, I just stopped buying until we went back into the bullish control zone. So I did listen to it in the sense of we stopped buying, but I did not sell on this position. So all good things there. Yep, and then started accumulating back here, and now we're just kind of waiting to see what happens with the Ethereum show. Let's move on to XRP. XRP got some amazing news last week. It acquired its charter banking license, right? So while it's in its infancy and it's very, very new, it's unprecedented where crypto companies have acquired banking licenses. I think we're going to see a lot more maturing and development in the crypto space because of these type of things, but we're not really seeing that in the price action at the moment. The price action has not reacted favorably to the news that we saw last week. So what does that mean? It means we're in a bear stretch right now. When you see really good news that doesn't pump the price of these assets, you can kind of assume that we are in a bearish stance in the market. And just from the last few months, really since about August, we have absolutely been in a bearish stance. So we have been speculating as to a breakout on XRP, and that's all we're doing for right now is just continuing to speculate. I did drop these targets down because all we're going to have to do until we see some sort of breakout move begin to happen is just take these targets that we've measured and keep moving them to the downside. Since it's a descending channel that we're in, we can keep these targets exactly the same because we are in a symmetrical formation, and the targets don't change when you're in a symmetrical formation. If we were if we were measuring this descending broadening formation, for example, the targets would change because, the last target would be about the size of the structure. So in that instance, we would have to change up the targets. We don't have to change up the targets until we see some sort of breakout of this move. When we break out of this descending channel at some point, then we can start speculating to the wider structure of the descending broadening formation, but we're just going to have to hold tight, and for the time being, just know that at some point we will be measuring for a breakout, most likely to the upside here. Okay, let's go ahead and go to Solana. Same sort of thing on Solana. Is we are just speculating as to some sort of breakout of this descending channel. We can look at our algorithm, which has been 85% profitable. The reason for that is we've had quite a few of these longer term, what I want to call, not really a fake out, but just longer term areas where our algorithm stops its purchasing activity, right? So we were purchasing all the way from January 2025 until just recently in September. Again, I'm not really taking these at face value of sell everything here. What I'm doing is I'm just stopping my buying activity, right? So same thing over here. Instead of selling because I believe in Solana's long-term future, it's more of an accumulation with a heads up for me as to I'm not going to actually be selling at these points, although you can absolutely follow the algorithm exactly as it comes, and that's fine too. But for me, I'm not really doing much selling because I'm just in accumulation mode, and I do believe these assets are going to have their day again in the future. So yep, just kind of speculating here on Solana, and again, we're still firmly in this zone of confluence. This purple box here is what I would call the zone of confluence, and all that means is you're just having the most interactions on the price action for the most recent part of history, right? So in the last 2 years, since 2024, this zone of confluence has acted as support. You can see we got support here, support here, support here, here, and then here, and maybe a little bit of resistance, but really not much. It broke through to the downside and then really just popped right back into it and above it. And you can see we still have not broken down out of this zone of confluence. We're really just kind of riding that line, and so that gives us a little more confidence to speculate on a move like what we're looking at here. So in the near future, I would expect we break out of this descending channel to the upside, but until the composite operator is ready to turn the market around, or we receive some really uplifting news, we're just going to kind of be speculating as to potential breakout zones in that instance. Let me pull up my... Okay, good. Yeah, I got my day trade ready to rock over here. So we're going to be taking a day trade on NQ at some point in the near future here. Most likely, I updated a couple of the algorithms, and they tend to be going... Yeah, they tend to be taking their shot around 7 p.m. So about half an hour from now. So once we get through these other assets, and if I see that happen, we'll do it here live on the channel. Okay, very good. Solana, you know, again, we could look at some news maybe and see... Now, let's just take a look at some of this news here. BTC, ETH, SOL, and XRP react as U.S. banks receive approval to offer cryptocurrencies to customers. Large cap cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and XRP have recorded impressive gains over the last 72 hours, attempting to recoup previous losses. This might be a little bit of an old article. Yeah, this is from the 14th. So, well, that's today. Let's see. Yeah, we have not been seeing impressive gains over the last 72 hours. So I'm not sure who wrote this article, but it is very interesting that U.S. banks can now offer cryptocurrency services to their customers. So that is very interesting. That comes from ZY Crypto. Let's see. Yeah, not seeing anything too much more notable on Solana in the news at the moment. Usually if there's something, it'll pop out right at the top, pop out for me. Okay, let's go ahead and move over to Tron, and then we'll go back through and talk about maybe some of the technicals of what we're looking at as far as, like, you know, community sentiment, what the oscillator is saying, what the moving averages are saying. And here we are with Tron again. Again, take a look at this. This is our TRX algorithm that has had 100% successful trades. If you want access to this algorithm or the ability to program algorithms like this yourself, just go ahead and put your TradingView username into our Discord support, and go ahead and give this video a like and our channel a subscribe, and you can have access to an algorithm that has had 100% successful trades, 499 successful trades in its entire life. How is that even possible? It just doesn't sell that often, right? Last times we've sold were back in December of 2024, and before that, November 2024, August 2024, and February of 2024. So the reason that this algorithm is so successful is because it has mathematics that recognize when we are at relative peaks, and you can do your selling activity at those points. You know, like I was saying with like Solana and Ethereum, I don't usually take the sell signals at face value, but in an instance like TRX, I absolutely take these sell signals at face value because of the way that the asset is performed. This asset has always been in a bullish control zone. So what you're looking at this green cloud here, that's our algorithm saying that we are in bullish control. And as I've shown on streams in the past, this particular asset has never been in a bearish control zone. That's why it's one of our largest holdings, and also one of my favorite assets to accumulate. And this particular one, just since TRX was in the top 50 and then the top 30 and the top 20, and now it's in the top 10, I have been taking this algorithm and using the sell signals for what they are, and it's turned out very well because we're only taking about 10% off of the table each time we have a sell signal. So when I say 10% off the table, we're just going back to cash a little bit and then waiting for the algorithm to reaccumulate. So taking some of those profits off the table and just reaccumulating from there. What are we looking at on TRX at the moment? It's really the only one in the top 10 that has had a positive day today, I will say. And we are kind of just speculating as like potential areas where we could see a breakout. So Potential breakout zone at the moment, kind of where I've been speculating, is we need to get back above this heart line, and we really need to see a nice push and a higher low. Currently, we still have not formed a higher low. It's been a lower low and then a lower low, and today maybe we put our lowest low in. We could throw a horizontal line on here, boop, like that. Let me turn this purple. Yeah, so maybe we've seen kind of a double bottom going on here, and if we do see some sort of bullish breath in at least Bitcoin or some of the higher tier assets, Bitcoin and Ethereum, if we can see any sort of bullish move, we might have some conviction to start speculating more into these plays playing out. There we go. Let me move this guy. Boom, and then we'll just copy that. Easy way to copy these shapes is if you just use the control button and then click on it. So yeah, we might have some sort of double bottom going on here. What we really want to see is a higher low and then a push to this descending trend line, and then we can start speculating on a breakout and these targets that I've measured here. Again, on Tron and with these descending channels, we don't have to remeasure these targets. All we have to do is put them where our breakout zone is. So at some point when this thing does push up and we do start to break out of the top side of this structure, then we can kind of, put where our exact targets are. So I'm not really going to say where our targets are at the moment because we just don't know, because we haven't seen a breakout going on. Okay, very good. Let's go ahead and look at gold, because gold, I did change up the algorithm a little bit last week because we did start to break out. So instead of taking 100% off of the table and having less selling activity, I'd made it so that we have 10% coming off of the table. And you can see just today, just in the last 12 hours, we did get another sell signal. So we got one on Friday, and then we got one right here. So I am taking some off of the table as we're moving into this breakout, just because I've been accumulating for a very, very long time, and I'm ready to start taking a few profit-taking moves on this, PAX G. So PAX G is available on most, if not all, major cryptocurrency exchanges, and PAX G follows the price of gold. What do we have here? A 100% successful algorithm. What do I mean by 100% successful? Well, it really doesn't sell that often, but when it does sell, all of the selling activity that is occurring is above where previous buying activity occurred, right? So we're using algorithms to sell and manage our risk in areas that, we're basically areas of where we're speculating we could be finding target ranges, right? And currently this breakout could take gold all the way up to 5,400. That would be absolutely insane. Do I see that happening by May next year? Well, if we look at gold since 2024, we could absolutely see a $5,400 ounce of gold by May next year. So could it happen? Sure. Do I expect that to happen? Maybe. I mean, it's kind of crazy to even think about. Gold was in that less than $2,000 range for its entire life up until 2024, and then just went absolutely bonkers for the last 2 years. So anything can happen, and like I said, gold is now considered a risk-off asset. So when traders and investors are pulling out of risk-on assets and they're going back to cash or risk-off, gold is a good place for them to park their cash. So yeah, I could absolutely see going up to 4,900 and even 5,400 on gold. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Okay. Please go ahead and give us a like and subscribe. We're going to be building the largest and most successful algorithmic trading community on the internet. It starts last week and it's going to go for the foreseeable future. We're planning on building this channel and really getting this thing off the ground. And in order to get it off the ground, if you didn't catch it already, we are giving away our entire suite of TradingView strategies completely for free. So everything I'm showing you here, you can have access to. We have a community algorithm configuration document to kind of give you some starter points of where you might find some success with these things. But let me just go ahead and point out to you a few of the advantages of using an algorithm like this. So this is actually our most basic 2.1. We have all the way up to 2.4.2 available in the description below, and it's just different iterations of our, how we use these algorithms, either on a long term or a short term, even down to day trading. We're starting to figure out how to use all of this mathematics, even day trading futures and things like that. So we're looking to build a community of people who are interested in helping each other and interested in algorithmic risk management. That's what we're all about here. I don't consider myself a trader. I consider myself a risk manager. So that's what one of my partners says, is we are not traders, we are risk managers. And how do we manage our risk automatically around the clock? We use mathematics and algorithms. And I'm more than happy to show you how all of this stuff works. If you have any requests of strategies, of other indicators, other algorithm providers, all across TradingView, just go ahead and drop us a comment in the comments on YouTube, or send a message to our Discord channel and just get a conversation going, and we can absolutely review different assets. We can plug in some of our different algorithms. I have a whole bunch of algorithms that aren't even in the description below that we're going to be publishing that will be available while we're getting this off the ground. And if you go ahead and get our TradingView algorithms while we're getting this thing off the ground, you're going to be completely grandfathered in, right? We've sold these things for hundreds and even thousands of dollars a piece, but while we're getting this thing off the ground, we are giving away completely for free. Very, very cool. So how do you use these things, right? We have a very well-defined entry strategy. We have an additional entry strategy based off of different types of moving averages. We have our exit strategy based off of RSI and CCI, or relative strength index and commodity channel index, that allows you to choose the percentage of the trade that you want to take off of the table, right? And then we have our take profit metrics, which again, you can see last week I had set like this with 100% coming off of the table and rebalancing, in which case I wasn't really listening to the algorithm in the sense of taking 100% off of the table, right? I had my selling disabled through the Cryptohopper application. So that's another thing, is we're top traded on Cryptohopper. So if you're familiar at all with Cryptohopper, you can find us in their marketplace, and you can automate these strategies directly to your Cryptohopper accounts. So last week, again, I was using this algorithm more of a indication of where a relative peak might be. But since then, I've decided, since I've been accumulating for so long on PaxG, that I was going to drop this down to taking 10% off of the table, which gave us a lot more sell signals, and then I turned my selling on. So you can see I've been accumulating for years and years and years on PaxG, but now I've turned on the ability to sell, just because we are going into a fresh breakout, and I'm trying to, put some things back to cash to accumulate other assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, TRX, while we're at these low areas. So that's a very cool thing that I like to do, is I'm always accumulating PaxG, which is, equivalent to the price of gold. And every so often I'll do something like this, where I have a very large gold position, but now I'm trying to go back into, risk assets like Bitcoin. So what do? I start selling back to cash on my gold, and then I start accumulating a little bit heavier on Bitcoin in these areas that we're finding, a little bit more of a value area, because a lot of people, a lot of our customers and a lot of our, community, they start getting in at around all-time high because they're like, wow, Bitcoin is $125,000 a coin. I have to get some of that. It's never going down. Well, here we are a few months later. It's back down to 88,000. So what am I doing? Trying to be a smart investor is I'm not piling in at 125,000. I'm starting to sell my gold while we're down here at 88,000 on Bitcoin, and then using the cash that's coming off of the gold position that I've built for years in order to start accumulating things like XRP and Bitcoin again, right? I also have a very large Ethereum position, so I'm just ever so slightly accumulating Ethereum, just waiting for the day that we can really see some, another move like this. This was an amazing move where I took lots of, different profit taking and things like that using a technical basis from this descending broadening formation breakout. But now we're just kind of in no man's land, just waiting to see if this is going to play out and a lot of other things. Okay, very good. So that's the crypto space. Let's go ahead and talk about the Mag 7 space going into this week. So overnight, or last week, Google, or really since the beginning of December, Google's been pretty much sideways. We've been at this massive run-up level in which there's not a whole lot of selling activity going on, but now we're starting to see a series of lower highs, right? We got kind of this topping area right here, and we've seen a little bit lower high, we've seen a lower low, so we could be starting to finally come back into a level that's not up at this gigantic peak that we saw. So if I turn this on the daily chart, Google had this absolutely insane run for like 6 months straight, right? Just insanity, straight up in the air. And ever since then, we formed these little like stair step type of moves, right? One of those stair step moves that put in a lot of support, or like a really heavy level of support, was back in September to October, right? This area, we found some support here. So now we're kind of forming another level of support right here. So kind of a cascade. If we do start to see some downside pressure, I could see us coming back to 283 and then 245, and maybe trying to form a little bit of a level of support around this 245 area, or even all the way back to this 200 area. So depending on if the AI news keeps playing out, or what happens, Google's pretty much a monster any way you spin it, and I could see all the way down to this 200 level maybe being an area where we do find a new level of support and then start going back to the upside, or we could just continue rocket shipping to the upside. You never really know, but Google has started to find its top here, I think, for the foreseeable future. Now, if we go look at the Google algorithm, this thing's just been doing swing trades. We had one swing trade through the course of November, one swing trade through the course of October, a swing trade back in August. So, the other thing that you can do with this is use these signals to accumulate, right? So that's oftentimes what I'll do, is just use these signals as areas where you can add to your position. And that's kind of what we're looking at. Right now we just formed a bearish control cloud. That doesn't really mean a whole lot on Google and the trend that it's in right now. As you can see, like, this bearish control cloud was very, very short-lived, didn't really lead to any downside price action. Same here, didn't really lead to downside price action. Same here, same here. So, how long will we stay in this? We're not really sure, but we're going to keep an eye on it. And as you can see, bearish control didn't last long, bearish control didn't last long. The last time we saw some significant bearish control was, beginning of the year, or yeah, beginning of 2025, where we had been accumulating, just adding to our position until about July, and then that's when things just absolutely took off to the upside. So if you're using this for accumulation, this is a very, very good accumulation algorithm. And you can use these sell signals however you see fit. Again, you can choose to follow them just as they are, or just use them as like a general idea of, hey, if I need to go back to cash, let me just go ahead and wait until I see some selling activity at least. This algorithm, if you just follow it the way that it is, has been 92% successful, right? So very, very high accuracy, but you do have to have some patience because Google being, $300 a share, and in this instance, buying 2 shares every time it tells you to, you just got to have a little bit of conviction and a little bit in your wallet to be able to afford that. So, okay, very good. Let's go ahead and move on to Tesla. Let's talk about Tesla on a technical basis. This is on the daily chart. So we're looking at a very, very long time span, but Tesla's in a very interesting area because we were in this descending triangle that had a flat bottom, right? Very ugly descending triangle, I will say. It's not the prettiest. We did have this double bottom, right? And really what we're looking at here is it's not even really a descending triangle. It's more of just a breakout of this trend line here, which we played and are still in the middle of this play. So that broke out back in August. That broke out back in August, and we achieved target number 1 and 2 relatively quickly. And then we started to form this descending broadening formation. And now, just on Friday, we did start to potentially break out of this descending broadening formation where we had speculated a potential breakout could occur. What I'm looking at here is if we do break out to the upside, come back for a retest. Usually want to enter on a retest, but if we come back and enter for a retest, then we're going to be looking at making this entire other play, right? So we've already achieved target 1 and 2, moved our stop loss to break even down here. Again, 50% of our trade coming off at take profit 1, and then moving our stop loss to break even at take profit number 2. And right now we're just kind of sitting at about 25% of our original position size, waiting for target 3 to be achieved. But we did form this other descending broadening formation, and I was speculating that we might see somewhat of like a inverse head and shoulders where we have the left shoulder, head, and then right shoulder coming down. But we just didn't see that. Right now it looks like it is maybe going to want to break out to the upside. So yeah, there's some news here on Tesla, but I'm not going to read any of this news until this week and we start to see what happens with this potential breakout here. I think a lot of traders and investors are seeing this potential breakout and of this, descending trend line at least. And yeah, we're just going to wait and see what happens, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week. But I am going to remain extremely vigilant because if I have the opportunity, I will be entering another play for Tesla. And we might get my partner in here tomorrow in which he could give us some ideas for maybe some options plays and things that he's thinking about on this one. Because if he wants to give us some options plays that go out to like March or something like that, or even further, heck, that'd be a really cool way to size this thing up as well. So, okay, that's Tesla. Let's go ahead and look at what the algorithm has to say. Yep, the algorithm gave us a buy signal on Thursday last week. So that was the last time that we had interaction with the algo. Previously, we had a sell signal on Monday and Tuesday, and then again the Friday before last. So selling going into the beginning of last week, and then another buy signal on Thursday, which is now, as we can see, is breaking out of this top trend line here. So very, very cool. And let's go ahead and move on. Meta. Meta has, let me go ahead and turn the algo off so we can take a little bit better look at this. So Meta is, you guessed it, in a descending broadening formation again. The last two major structures that I played was this descending channel that happened at the beginning of the year when everything kind of took that tumble at the beginning of the year around, January to April, and then played this move to the upside, which achieved all of its targets. Now what we're looking at is a descending broadening formation, and there's really nothing we can speculate as far as like top tier trade entries, because we're not close enough to this descending trend line on the top. So until we get a bit closer to this descending trend line on the top and we can form some conviction, Meta has some good news, gives us some serious conviction to enter another technical analysis style of trade, I'm just going to be sitting here waiting to see what happens a bit with Meta. So not too much going on with Meta. We can look at the algo. The algo's done really well on its own. It's been much more of a scalping type of algorithm, right? Where we're seeing a lot of selling activity going on. Again, if you want access to any of these algorithms, you're fully welcome to edit them yourselves and share with our community. We're always looking for participation because, there's a million ways to program these things. And if we're all working together, we're going to have a heck of a time, utilizing these to the best of our capacity. So very, very cool. Let's go ahead and talk about Amazon. For some reason, the Amazon algo quit working on us. Either that or I'm checked on the wrong one. Yeah, I have two of them going here, but yeah, so one of them is much more of like an accumulation style of algorithm, which is what we're looking at here, where it's only going to be selling at relative peaks, right? You can see it's selling at that peak, selling at that peak, selling at this peak. Other than that, sending signals for accumulation. And Amazon being $226 per share, it's not too bad, right? You can definitely stomach this as an accumulation style, where if you were to, buy one share each time you saw one of these, you can absolutely play this exactly as the algo tells you to. But what we're looking at on a technical basis, if I turn the algo off, if we're looking at this on a technical basis, what are we looking at here? You guessed it, descending broadening formation. We're seeing these all over the place. So Amazon, I am speculating that we're going to have some sort of breakout activity occurring, but what we're going to have to look at on Amazon, if I just zoom in a little bit here, is now our targets aren't really accurate anymore. So what I'm going to do is just kind of resize this up here. So, we want our stop loss to be at like the last swing low level. So we're currently right next to that last swing low level. So we might have to even bring it down to like here or even like here to really give ourselves the room that we need. And also we're going to have to like move this down a little bit and potentially remeasure these targets as we get a little closer to a breakout zone. So, yep, that's exactly what I do. Is once we get a little further down, I usually just kind of move some stuff around just to resize up and align with what could potentially be happening. I'm not going to remeasure these targets until we actually start a breakout move, but I will remeasure these stop loss levels, because now that we've kind of this was our most recent swing low. Now I'm kind of speculating that our new swing low area is going to have to be maybe right here. So we'll just go ahead and resize these up here and go something like that. So currently this is the speculation on Amazon, and I have this, top target, which would put us at a new all-time high, somewhere around that like $275 level by like April next year. We'll see if that happens or not, but you can also see that through 2025, it's been very, very volatile with a lot of wide swings. So yeah, we're just going to have to keep an eye on that. And since we are close to this trend line, I am kind of speculating that we might have a breakout sooner than later, but we'll see what happens with the broader market. and the S&P in general, and just, you know, the Mag 7, and just see how things are going. Apple looks kind of similar to Google, right? Where we've just had this rocket ship move since July to the upside. So let me just clean this up a little bit, take the algo off there. What are we looking at on Apple here? Let me change up the visibility on this a little bit. We'll go stop color, and we'll go, there we go. Same here, stop color, just give us a little more highlight there. Okay, very good. So what we're looking at on Apple is if we do start to break to the downside of this ascending channel, remember people, ascending patterns tend to be bearish, descending patterns tend to be bullish, right? And you can see a perfect example of that is we had a large descending broadening formation that ended up having a bullish breakout to the upside, right? And now this ascending channel is most likely to have a breakout to the downside. So I have put 2 targets here on Apple, bringing us back to, you know, these previous all-time high levels, and then which are around, you know, 250, really like 255 to like 250, and then besides that, oh, okay, I got a comment here saying Mr. Buffett, Warren Buffett, announced taking a fairly large position in them too, not too long ago. Okay, yeah. Not sure what that was regarding, but yeah, Apple, we might be seeing a little bit of downside, and that could bring us all the way down to like that 225 area. So yeah, we're just gonna kind of keep an eye on this one, but could potentially do something with like maybe an options play, or, you know, just some selling shares and like rebuying in these areas as well. So interesting. Okay, Microsoft. Let's go ahead and look at the Microsoft algo. 86% profitable. This one's been an absolute monster, and really it's more of an accumulation and rebalance kind of style algorithm, this one anyway, where you could use these signals as accumulation, right? And then using the sell signals again as like just giving you an idea where it might be a good idea to go back to cash, or just giving you a little bit more insight as to like relative peaks in the market. Beginning of the year, this year, we had, you know, a little bit of downside, just like everything else, but we had a very nice accumulation zone, right? So this area was all about accumulation, and then when we saw that first big pump when everything started to turn around, yeah, we did see some nice selling activity, or just giving you a general idea that there could have been a relative peak. Microsoft completely ignored that, however, so if you're using this more of just an accumulation, right, that would have been a very good area to accumulate, and then continued accumulation through these relative valleys until where we're at right now. So Microsoft, love this algorithm. This is on the 1 hour chart. So this is, you know, you can see the, if I zoom in, each one of these blue and then orange and then clear areas is a day, right? So we're looking at days at a time here. You know, you can see this is the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, and you can see separated by these vertical lines that, you know, we have printed on here just to show us where the days happen. So this is a longer term, you know, buy and hold kind of thing, but yeah, you could absolutely play this a lot of different ways, just using these sell signals as general ideas of peaks is really good, and using the blue arrows to accumulate could totally do that. Nvidia, okay, Nvidia, I am speculating a move at some point in the near future here, but as we saw on Friday, we got a big rejection. You know, actually really all last week we got a big rejection off of this descending channel. So I'm still going to leave these targets where I've measured them thus far. You know, kind of speculating that we're going to get some sort of move that could take us to new all-time highs. I've measured out around $222 here. So just gonna continue to speculate on this one, that there will be a breakout of this descending channel at some point. We just don't know when. So if we look at earlier this year, move that we played here, this descending broadening formation, really kind of like a descending channel, but it was a widening formation, so it does classify as a descending broadening formation, but played this really nice breakout move on the upside. We never got a retest on NVIDIA on this one. I remember it was kind of a nail biter because entered just a very small amount here, and then I was waiting for a retest that never came. So I actually started entering again one or two entries when we started going into the bullish control zone again. So, oh, actually you can see bullish control zones up here. Yeah. So we were entering like right when this breakout started and just kind of waiting for a retest that never came. So I didn't get my full bite on this position like I wanted it to. I really wanted to see a retest so we could have had a secondary add to this position, but yeah, it just never quite happened. But we did achieve all three targets, so that was very cool. And, you know, our long-term hold position has just been doing absolute insane things this year with a 28% gain on NVIDIA. So, yeah, we're basically just speculating that we will have another upside breakout in the near future here. Okay, we've been live for about an hour, just kind of waiting on our futures algorithm to take a trade here. So let's see. I'm going to pull this one back on screen now that we've talked about the Mag 7. And then Walmart, love this algorithm too. Walmart, 86% successful. Max equity drawdown, if you're just following this for what it is, about, 1 to 12, right? So 12 times your reward for what you risked on this particular algorithm. This one's easy to bite off because it's only $100 a share, right? So this one you can actually follow very relatively easily and just follow it at face value. So love this one. It is longer term. It's on the 10-minute chart, but you're going to be playing moves that go for, a month or two at a time. So if you want access to this, again, just go ahead and mention in the comments, go ahead and give us a like and share, and then drop your TradingView username into our Discord support, and we'll get you hooked up with all of these. Moving on. So I was playing with this day trading algorithm over the weekend. Go F11. Boom, let me put this guy back up here. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a few of the algorithms that I'm running in Tradify accounts at the moment. So I'm looking at this from a few different angles, right? I have this one going to a 150K account. This one did 2 trades last week, and although I want these trades to go through on live, I don't decide when the technical analysis decides to line up. I just decide what the technical analysis that I want to use in a specific scenario is. So here, what I'm doing is I'm being very specific. Since we're trying to pass prop account tests, I'm only letting 1 successful trade go through a day. This thing can make up to 3 trades in a day, in which it will martingale if it loses. So what does that mean? If it loses its first trade, it's going to go from 1 contract to 2 contracts on the second trade. If it loses its second trade, it's going to go from 2 contracts to 4 contracts on its third trade. If it loses its third trade, it's done for the day. Then when it comes back the next day, it's going to martingale again. So this one can martingale up to 8 contracts. If you've never traded futures, 8 NQ contracts is a lot. It will swing hundreds, if not thousands of dollars at a time. So I don't really want it to martingale any more than that, but you can see the track record here has been pretty consistent. Let me pull up, let me just change one thing here because for some reason this algo doesn't like to keep these dashboards up here, even though they're very important to look at. Okay, there we go. So let me just go ahead and resave that. There we go. Okay, so these dashboards, very important to look at. So this one, the max wins in a row that it's ever had is 9. The max losses in a row is 3. So if we're going to what I was just talking about, you know, it has only ever, during this period of time with 178 trades, it's only ever lost 3 trades in a row. So it's only ever martingaled 3 times. So 1 contract to 2 contracts to 4 contracts. That is exactly what I want, right? You can see up here, if you can't quite see, I'll read it out. So this Sunday that it had 3 losing trades, I remember I was sitting here, it had a $1,100 loss, right? But the very next day on Monday, because it martingaled up to 8 contracts, it had a $3,900 win, right? This was all taking place in my demo paper account. How I do this is I rock it in my paper account until I'm confident enough to move it to a prop account, okay? So I watched this happen. This was about the time when I was like, okay, I'll move it to a prop account. It had a $1,100 loss and then a $3,900 gain. And I was like, okay, I'm happy with the martingale aspect of this algorithm. Let's go ahead and put it live. And ever since then, it's had, you know, a few winning days. There was one day on stream where it just didn't fire a signal for some reason. And again, algorithmic trading, it's automated, but it's not automatic. You have to really be paying attention. It is, you know, in an algorithm that's more for day trading where you can risk thousands and hundreds and thousands of dollars on a single trade, you really want to be paying attention to it. You know, things like the Bitcoin algorithm that's long-term accumulation, you don't need to pay as much attention to this because all you're doing is receiving a buy signal maybe like a few times a week or like, you know, 10 times a month or something like that, right? So those algorithms you can kind of set and forget, whereas these day trading algorithms, you're just going to blow prop accounts. Trust me, I've had hundreds and hundreds of prop accounts, okay? If you're not paying attention and you don't have a very specific set to your algorithm or a specific set of rules that you're trying to follow, you're just going to blow accounts. So for me, what I'm trying to do here on stream is I have a 150K account that's fresh. I started last week, which we can look at here. This guy. Yep. So this 150K account, which I'm doing live on the stream with you guys, has made about $500 in a week. Not great, not terrible, especially since we had one trade last week that just didn't go through for some reason. I tried to trade it manually and made a $200 loss on a day that if it happened automatically, it should have been a $200 gain, but that's neither here nor there. I edited the algorithm and now we're rocking where we got a $500 gain at the moment and we're trying to maintain that. And the target on this account is 9,000. So how long is it going to take to get to 9,000, making a few $100s a day? It's probably going to take a little while, right? That's another reason I did the 150K account, is just to give myself a little room for error. But I started another 50K account fresh for you guys this week so that we can look at a second algorithm. The other thing I like to do is I don't like to just have one set of rules that I follow. I like to test out a lot of different sets of rules. So here's another set of rules that we're going to be trying to do here live on stream. So this algorithm, very, very similar, except for it should fire a little bit earlier in the day. As you can see, every time that this thing fires, it's very, very close to market open. That's another reason I started this one, is so that we could potentially hit some of these live trades together while we're close to the market open area. And then also over the weekend, another thing that I'm going to start another account on here is this algorithm, which trades during New York session. As you can see on this one has a lot more capability of loss. So, you know, you got to have your risk, you got to have your risk settings really dialed in, right? So on this one, I've made it so that in the account that I'm going to use this one, once I hook it up, it can only lose up to $1,500 in a day, and it'll just shut it off, right? So if you're using a 150K account on Tradify, you have anywhere between 4,500 and 6,000 drawdown. So you have the ability to lose a few times. Really, you have the ability to lose 4 days in a row at minus $1,500 each before you blow the account. So trying to, you know, expand from the sessions that we trade. So just trading, you know, at the beginning of each session or overnight. And then here, this one is going to be designed to trade New York session. And you can see the max equity drawdown over the last 153 trades is about 5,300. So we really need about $6,000 of drawdown. I'm going to be opening a few Apex accounts. By the way, Apex is running a 90% off sale. So if I pull this over here, Apex is running a 90% off sale for the next 3 days. We have a 90% off discount code in the description below. If you want to get this 90% off and use our discount code to do it, you can find the discount code for Apex in the description below. So I'm going to be opening, while they have this 90% off sale going, a few new Apex accounts of different sizes, all the way from 25K up to 250K, using algorithms either like this, you know, 250K account might be applicable for this, and then you know, 25K accounts for some of these other algorithms that maybe have, you know, $2,000 or $3,000 of drawdown. I am very focused on these particular ones at the moment because I just am seeing a lot more noticeably even keel success when using, you know, an algorithm that just trades a few times a day, right? If we can keep nailing, you know, $100, $150, $200, $300, $500 days, I'm totally cool with that. That would work for me to pass 25K accounts, 50K accounts, all that kind of stuff. So helping to manage the risk and also, you know, staying within the rules is key. And me, I'm an algorithmic trader. I like to automate things. I'm not an adrenaline junkie like a lot of these day traders. I like to have everything very nicely packed and know what my rules are for trading. So another thing we're going to do on this channel is review other providers' indicators and strategies, right? If there's an indicator or a strategy that you want us to review, just go ahead and drop it in the comments and we're going to review it. This one that we're using to do this 150 and this 50K account on the stream here is actually another provider, Algo Pro. They got really great stuff. They just came out with this Evo X. I absolutely love it because it has a ton of risk management tools that you can use, right? So if I kind of squeeze this in here, we could just look at a couple of the things that are really, really cool with this provider's algorithms. So they have this whole signal confluence thing. Currently, I've played with this thing a lot, but there's a lot more to explore with it. But they have this signal confluence, right? So what you can do is use all of these different signal types in their confluence signals, right? They have fear and greed index, volume exhaustion, liquidity grab, price exhaustion. I'm currently using the stochastic. They have average true range, Williams percentage, wave trend, their V3, which is one of their other algorithms, oscillator, squeeze momentum, moving average oscillator, volume RSI, volume pressure, linear regression. So after I get off the stream, what I was planning on doing is actually playing with a few more of these indicators and signal confluences and trying to get a couple different variations of this exact algorithm, because what I would like to do is once I find one that's successful, right? I'm just going to stack accounts. If I get one that passes an account, I'm going to start another account. I'm going to start 5 more accounts using the exact same algorithm. But I want to find algorithms that are successful, that are replicatable, repeatable, and that I can use for the long term. And we've been working on these futures algos, on and off for the last year or so. We got some people that have been testing them out. We've had some success, we've had some failures, but what we're looking to do is build a community of like-minded algorithmic traders who want to, test things out with us, help us review these things, and ultimately we want to be the largest, most successful algorithmic trading community on the internet. And how are we going to do that? We're going to do that by working together, right? So yeah, if you want access to any of our suite of indicators, they're in the description below. Just go ahead and like this video, subscribe to our channel, and we will make sure to get you hooked up with that stuff. So I'm going to keep this Sunday stream a bit short. I was hoping to see a day trade on either one of these first 2 algos, because I have them hooked up to the 2 accounts that I was talking to you about. But if we don't see one in the next 5 to 10 minutes while I'm rambling on here, we can kind of move on from there, and I'll just end the stream, and we'll just go ahead and pack it up there. But yeah, I'm really interested in these ones. Again, let me just keep going through a little bit of the risk management stuff on this Algo Pro Evo X algorithm. So they have all of these different indicators that you can use, so that's very cool. Then they have these signal filters, so you're able to filter by volume, filter by volume length, volume multiplier, filter by trend. You can close trades on trend change. You can filter by volume weighted average price. You can close trades on volume weighted average price cross. Filter by range breakout. The list just goes on. And if none of this makes sense to you, that's okay, because it makes sense to us. We've been doing this a long time, and we are more than willing to educate, right? Just go ahead and pop into our Discord and ask us any questions you have. Go ahead and comment in YouTube on this stream and ask us any questions that you might have, right? Because this is what my passion is, and I want to build a community of successful algorithmic traders, and I want to build the largest group of successful automated traders, right? I've done this for a number of different clients. I've done this for hedge funds. I've helped build HFT projects, and my Chihuahua is now barking at me because I have not fed her chicken in the last hour. She's up to about 5 chickens a day. Actually, drop in the comments. I'm going to get a camera I'm going to call it the Nugget Cam, right? And I'm going to get a camera for whenever she starts acting up. I'm just going to point the camera at her and let you guys deal with her. So, nah, she's an amazing dog. Wouldn't trade her for the world. She's a world-class lap dog, about an 8-pound Chihuahua. So give me a shout out for my little 8-pound Chihuahua. She is a wonderful angel, even though she barks at me during my live streams. Okay, moving on. This algorithm is amazing. They have tons and tons of risk management tools. They got take profit, stop loss, choose your take profit style of either ticks, percentage, ATR, stop loss style, right? They got enable trailing take profit. God, it just goes on and on. They got dollar cost averaging manager, so you can DCA using this algorithm if you want. They have a martingale manager, so you can martingale using this algorithm. I love it. They got a session manager. I need to add all this stuff to our algorithms, but they got a session manager where you can choose what times you actually want to trade. If you want to close a trade at session end, use your custom time zone, avoid specific times. My goodness. And I'll tell you, I've played with this thing probably for about 100 hours, and I finally just started to find a decent profit curve that I really like, and I'm willing to not only test in paper but move to prop accounts. So yeah, they got this whole risk manager section, volatility size adjustment, all this stuff, right? So again, if there's any strategies that you want us to review, I do this all day, every day. I know exactly what I'm looking at here, and I can help demystify some of the more difficult aspects of like getting going with this stuff, because I do understand it takes a long time. I've spent probably 20 or 30,000 hours on TradingView alone. So yeah, use our expertise. There's no reason to sit there and say, you know, I have no idea what's going on, I can't do this. It just takes a few dedicated hours and some questions in our Discord group, right? I know people are busy, but that's what we're here for, is we want to build the largest algorithmic trading community on the internet. So thank you very much. I think that's going to do it for the stream today, just because we are waiting another 8 minutes for the potential of a signal that might not be coming for the next couple of hours. So I'm going to try and figure out how to get these trades to, at least using this algorithm that I'm, you know, testing out right now, or one of our algorithms. I'm going to figure out how to get some of these trades to go through, hopefully within the first like hour of me talking, because I can go on forever. I can go on for hours, but I really want to nail some of these trades live on stream with you, and it's going to be algorithmic, right? We could do, you know, maybe I'll find a nice opening range breakout strategy that works well at the beginning of each new trading session, because we're doing these streams at 6 p.m. So yeah, I'm going to try and find, if it's not this particular algorithm, I will find one that takes trades and has a nice profit curve that we can kind of follow along together, and then utilize in a prop account to take the risk way down. Because if you're doing this stuff in a cash account, you got to be on the ball, man. If you're using a prop account, it takes a lot of the risk out, and it does not hurt as bad if you do blow an account. Like, big deal, you lost $50 to $100, you know, instead of losing thousands of actual dollars. But the cool thing about prop accounts is once you do get them passed and you can start taking payouts, then they really work in your favor, because you're never risking your own capital. It takes a lot of the stress away. So yeah, all right, my friends, that's going to do it for the day. Again, this stream is 100% sponsored by us. Go ahead and visit killerwhaleventures.com. Use the code CyberMonday50 for 50% off of our crypto AI products. Go ahead and drop your TradingView username in our Discord support. Give this channel a like and subscribe, and we'll make sure that you get our suite of industry-grade tools and some of our 100% successful algorithms. Where can you find that on the internet? Huh? Where can you find that? You can find that right here at Killer Whale Ventures. Thank you guys so much.